I wanted to take a minute to address something that I have created a section on my website, the EPA and their new rules on diesel engines. A quick overview of the rules is that starting in 2004, there were emissions that started. The first one was about EGR, exhaust gas recirculation. Then in 2007, 2008, there was another level that it was taken to that was concerning regeneration and diesel particulate filtration. And then in 2010, for 2011, was added an after treatment, which is diesel exhaust fluid. It's a urea fluid that is used to be introduced into the exhaust system that does something in there to burn off the particulates and other bad things that are supposedly created by diesel engines. So basically you've had like a 3 or 4 step process that this has come along with. The trucks have been a lot more trouble with much higher maintenance costs since this was introduced in 2004. Diesel engines are pretty much the most basic technology there is. You know, you pretty much put fuel in them, you turn the key, and they'll go. And that's a big reason why the trucking industry went to diesel so many decades ago, just because it's so simple. They're very durable, they're very powerful, they're more efficient, and therefore that's why we run diesels. I had managed to stay away from the new trucks. I had never driven anything but an EGR engine, meaning pre-2007, until January of 2013, when I leased a 2011 Peterbilt with the Cummins ISX engine. I had that truck for 6 months. It cost me over $20,000 in lost revenue and more than $13,000 in repairs. I got rid of that truck, I turned it in, and I went to the dealership and I bought a 2007 Freightliner Centric class with a Detroit diesel, which is what I'm sitting in right now as I record this video. I've had this truck since the 1st of September. I've put a little more than 40,000 miles on it, and I've basically had no trouble with it. Since it had 600,000 miles on it, I've obviously had to spend a little money here just to, you know, regular upkeep. But this truck has not cost me what the other one did. It got to the point where with the new truck, I could not count on it to carry me to the delivery of my load. I just never knew when it was going to shut down again. And the last time that it shut down, I had picked it up from a dealership in Columbus, Ohio. There was an issue addressed, and the service manager said, "All right, you're good to go." And I said, "Hey man, you're my new hero." And he laughed and said, "Yeah, until it quits again." Well, turns out that was 650 miles. I made it to Des Moines, Iowa, and it shut down again. I was in the shop for 2 days, lost my load. I had a very nice paying load going to Canada. I had to give up my load. Someone came and got it and delivered it. And that was the last load I ever pulled with that truck. I was done. When I went to pick it up after the second night in the shop, I looked at the service manager and I said, "Why did it shut down?" And he just looked at me with kind of a blank look on his face, like, well, we really don't know. I mean, we changed the fitting and we changed the clamp and we did this and that and the other. But we really don't know why it shut down. And so I was done. My marriage was in question. Our financial livelihood was in question. We, you know, we had to move. We had no money. Every time I would pick a load up with that truck, and I would say, okay, here we go. This is a great paying load, and it'll get me back out of the hole. The truck would quit again. The whole point of this, of me saying this, and the page that I put up at my website, and the main reason I wanted to do this video was so that I can do it face to face. I want you to understand that I'm just a guy. I'm just a regular guy out here trying to make a living for his family. I'm not some wealthy Wall Street capitalist. I'm not some evil figurehead that is made out to be by these lunatics that write these environmental regulations that, you know, these people, whoever they are, that just would rather destroy the environment than to do what's right. Well, obviously no one wants to willingly do something or with malice in their heart to harm the environment. But this is way, way over and beyond what is reasonable. And what's funny to me, or I guess would be ironic, is so many of these people who champion these types of regulations are the same people that will say they're fighting for the little guy. Now, I make no distinctions between Republicans and Democrats. Please understand that. I see absolutely no difference between them. But, you know, you hear a lot of that coming from the left side of the paradigm. Oh, well, we care about the little man. Okay, well, who's helped here with these regulations? Companies that have 10 and 20,000 trucks and 20,000 drivers and 40,000 trailers. When these trucks break down on them, well, they just take another truck and a driver and stick it under the trailer and take it to the destination. I mean, they're inconvenienced, but they're not harmed. Let me tell you who is being harmed. Let me tell you who's being bankrupted. Let me tell you who are having their entire lives turned upside down by these regulations, and that is the independent owner-operator, the American, the last American cowboy, as they're called, the guy that goes out and puts his neck on the line and buys a truck and tries to engage in commerce as basically the last mom and pop guy there is, because you can still compete out here with the big carriers as long as you go and find a niche in the industry where you can, you know, where you can make enough money. But there's a great living to be made as an owner operator, and we're getting killed. We're absolutely getting our legs knocked out from under us by these regulations. Starting January 1st of 2014, I will not be allowed to drive this truck into the state of California without thousands of dollars in upgrades. So I just won't go. You know, so that's fine. But I will not. I've lived the nightmare. So understand that I will not comply with these regulations. It's not going to happen. I will not put a diesel particulate filter on my truck. I will not put a regeneration system on my truck. I will not add anything to this truck prescribed by the EPA or the DOJ or the XYZ or the, you know, I'm not doing it. I am out here to provide a living for my wife and children, period. I'm not going to be bankrupted by these clueless and incompetent morons in Washington, D.C. that will say anything and do anything just to get reelected. You know, their particular brand of voter wants, you know, EPA regulations and all this stuff, and so that's what they'll do because that's what they believe their constituents want. Just like the other side will, you know, engage in perpetual war and you know, tax breaks for their buddies, and you know, it's just the whole thing's a scam. But I am just a guy trying to make a living for his family. Now I'll say that I have, you know, two friends I can think of right now that have new trucks that haven't had any problems with them yet. But this is not, it's well documented throughout the industry how expensive these trucks are to operate. The cost just to purchase one has been driven up. The cost of the fuel to put in them has been driven up by regulation. And so, you know, you're seeing more and more and more owner-operators go buy old trucks, refurbish them, and keep running them. I personally know guys that have trucks with more than 2 million miles on them because they're not going to take a chance on going out and buying a new truck and have it bankrupt them. So they'll just take the old truck and put a new engine or a new transmission or new rear end gears in it and keep going. But it's time we start talking about how lives are being ruined, how wealth is being confiscated by these regulations. I'm just one tiny, small example of what has been done. And I even had a friend of mine who, like, you know, he's a big government kind of guy, and he says, well, you know, it sounds to me like bad engineering. And it amazes me after I tell my story and everything that I've gone through, and then someone won't dare blame the government or the regulation. They want to blame the carrier that was, or they want to blame the manufacturer that was regulated. Oh, well, it's their fault. No, because if there weren't for the regulation, they wouldn't put this garbage on these trucks that make them unreliable and inefficient. How hard is that to understand? So I've taken a new stance. I used to get wound up in politics and right versus left and left versus right. And I'm just not going to do that anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ignore the regulations. I'm not going to do it. I don't care what the government says. If you are a proponent of these regulations, I don't care what you think. And I will not do it. It's that simple. I will go out and I will make a living for my family. But I'm done jumping through your hoops and dealing with your silly regulations and your made-up, man-made, climate change, global warming propaganda. I'm not doing it. So that is my story. Everything that I've talked about here is outlined on a page at www.anamericantruckdriver.com/EPA. You can also find me at facebook.com/anamericantruckdriver and on Twitter @truckinzar. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.